Hi students, so today we're going to read the Jewbird together with some glosses and interpretation. This is not really an analysis of the Jewbird, but a reading of it. It has a number of words in Yiddish and some Jewish associations that some of you might not know. So I'm going to explain them in some difficult words and point out some interesting aspects of the story, but not really go into a overall analysis. Obviously, this story does not belong to me. I didn't write it, and I'm offering this video as an educational practice. I hope you enjoy it, and if you like the story, maybe go ahead and buy one of Bernard Malamud collections of stories. Oh, and one more thing. This story contains some adult language, some sexist language, and some ableist language. It also contains a scene of violence against a bird, and nothing that's very graphic or extreme, but I think it's considered appropriate today to warn about these things in stories. So I hope you enjoy. Here we go. The Jewbird by Bernard Malamud. The window was open, so the skinny bird flew in, flappity flap, with its frazzled black wings. That's how it goes. It's open, you're in. Closed, you're out, and that's your fate. A fatalistic view of the world where sometimes you're lucky, sometimes you're not, sometimes you're out, sometimes you're in. It's not really anybody's fault. This is probably from that bird's point of view. The bird wearily flapped through the open kitchen window of Harry Cohen's top floor apartment on First Avenue near the Lower East River. So this is happening in New York and in somebody named Harry Cohen's apartment. Cohen is a very typical Jewish name. It means priest in Hebrew, and the Jewish belief is that anybody named Cohen is a descendant of the priests who practiced in the temple in Jerusalem. On a rod on the wall hung an escaped canary cage, so there was a bird there before, its door wide open. But this black type long beak bird, its ruffled head and small dull eyes crossed a little, making it look like a dissipated crow, landed, if not smack on Cohen's thick lamb chop, at least on the table close by. The frozen food salesman, right? Cohen is associated with food he's eating. He sells food. Was sitting at supper with his wife and young son on a hot August evening a year ago. Cohen, a heavy man with hairy chest and beefy shorts. Edie in skinny yellow shorts and red halter, and their 10-year-old Morris after her father. For Ashkenazi Jews, you only name people after somebody dies, so it means that Edie's father died. Otherwise, her son would not be named after him. Mori, they called him. A nice kid, though not overly bright. We're all in the city after 2 weeks out because Cohen's mother was dying. They had been enjoying Kingston, New York, but drove back when Mama got sick in her flat in the Bronx. Right on the table, said Cohen, putting down his beer glass and swatting at the bird. Son of a bitch! Harry, take care of your language, Edie said, looking at Maury, who watched every move. The bird cawed hoarsely, and with a flap of its bedraggled wings, feathers stuffed this way and that, rose heavily to the top of the open kitchen door, where it perched, staring down. Gewalt, a pogrom! Gewalt means somebody help me in Yiddish. A pogrom is a riot against Jews. Another word in Yiddish that came into English because it's about Jews. And that's how the bird is speaking. Because it's a Jew bird, it speaks in Yiddish. It's a talking bird, said Edie in astonishment. In Jewish, said Mori. So in Jewish means in Yiddish. The word Yiddish in Yiddish means Jewish. Wise guy, muttered Cohen. He nodded on his chop, then put down the bone. So if you can talk, say what's your business? What do you want here? If you can't spare a lamb chop, said the bird, I'll settle for a piece of herring with a crust of bread. You can't live on your nerve forever. This ain't a restaurant, Cohen replied. All I'm asking is what brings you to this address. The window was open, like in the opening paragraph. The window was open, the bird sighed, adding after a moment, I'm running. I'm flying, but I'm also running. From whom? Asked Edie with interest. Anti-Semites, right? With an anti-Semites, people who hate Jews just for being Jews, but with a Yiddish accent. Anti-Semites. Anti-Semites? They all said. That's from whom? Notice how the grammar is a little upside down for the Jewbird because he's speaking with a Yiddish inflection. What kind of anti-Semites bother a bird? Edie asked. Any kind, said the bird, also including eagles, vultures, and hawks, and once in a while some crows will take your eyes out. But aren't you a crow? Me? I'm a Jewbird. Cohen laughed heartily. What do you mean by that? Cohen laughed heartily. What do you mean by that? The bird began davening. Davening is praying in a Jewish manner, usually rocking back and forth. He prayed without book or talit. Talit is a piece of cloth that religious Jewish people, usually men, wrap around themselves when they are praying in a synagogue. He doesn't have that. But what he does have is passion. So without book or talit, but with passion. Edie bowed her head, though not Cohen, and Mori rocked back and forth with the prayer, looking up with one wide open eye. So Mori is participating. When the prayer was done, Cohen remarked, no hat, no phylacteries. Phylacteries are another aspect of Jewish worship, and he doesn't have those. I'm an old radical, so saying I don't always do what the laws of Judaism tell me, but I'm still Jewish. You're sure you're not some kind of ghost or dibuk? A dibuk is a kind of Jewish folklore ghost or demon who takes over human bodies. Not a dibuk, answered the bird, though one of my relatives has had such an experience once. It's all over now, thank God. They freed her from a former lover, a crazy jealous man. She's now the mother of two wonderful children. Birds? Cohen asked slyly. Why not? What kind of birds? Like me, Jewbirds. Cohen tipped back in his chair and guffawed. That's a big laugh. I've heard of a Jewfish, which is a kind of fish, but not a Jewbird. We're once removed. The bird rested on one skinny leg, then on the other. Please, could you spare maybe a piece of herring with a small crust of bread? Edie got up from the table. What are you doing? Cohen asked her. I cleared the dishes. Cohen turned to the bird. So what's your name, if you don't mind saying? Call me Schwartz. Or maybe Schwartz would say Schwartz, like you would say it in Yiddish more or less. It means black, so the bird is black and his name is black, only in Yiddish. He might be an old Jew changed into a bird by someone, said Edie, removing a plate. Are you? Asked Harry, lighting a cigar. Who knows? Answered Schwartz. Does God tell us everything? Mori got up on his chair. What kind of herring? He asked the bird in excitement. Get down, Mori, or you'll fall, ordered Cohen. If you haven't got Matthias, I'll take schmaltz, said Schwartz. All we have is marinated with a slice of onion in a jar, said Edie. If you open for me the jar, notice the syntax, not the typical English American syntax. I'll eat marinated. If you open for me the jar, I'll eat marinated. Do you have also, if you don't mind, a piece of rye bread, the spitz? Spitz means edge or point, so the edge of the bread. Edie thought she had. Feed him out on the balcony, Cohen said. He spoke to the bird. After that, take off. Schwartz closed both bird eyes. I'm tired and it's a long way. Which direction are you headed, north or south? Schwartz barely lifted his wings, shrugged. You don't know where you're going? Where there's charity, I'll go. Let him stay, Papa, said Mori. He's only a bird. So stay the night, Cohen said, but no longer. In the morning, Cohen ordered the bird out of the house, but Mori cried. So Schwartz stayed for a while. Mori was still on vacation from school and his friends were away. He was lonely and Edie enjoyed the fun he had playing with the bird. He's no trouble at all, she told Cohen. And besides, his appetite is very small. What'll you do when he makes dirty? He flies across the street in a tree when he makes dirty. If nobody passes below, who notices? So all right, said Cohen, but I'm dead set against it. Warn you, he ain't gonna stay here long. What have you got against the poor bird? Poor bird, my ass. He's a foxy bastard. He thinks he's a Jew. What difference does it make what he thinks? A Jewbird. What chutzpah? Chutzpah means goal, but it has a lot of more weight in when you use the Yiddish word for it. One false move and he's out on his drumsticks. Drumsticks, that part of the chicken the legs of the chicken that you eat. So Cohen is thinking about Schwartz's food almost, is dead meat. At Cohen's insistence, Schwartz lived out on the balcony in a new wooden birdhouse Edie had bought him. With many thanks, said Schwartz, though I would rather have a human roof over my head. You know how it is at my age. I like the warmth, the windows, the smell of cooking. I would also be glad to see once in a while the Jewish Morning Journal, a newspaper, and have now and then a schnapps because it helps my breathing, thanks God. But whatever you give me, you won't hear complaints. However, he does complain, when Cohen brought home a bird feeder full of dried corn, Schwartz said, Impossible. Cohen was annoyed. What's the matter, cross-eyed? Is your life getting too good for you? Are you forgetting what it means to be migratory? I'll bet a hell of a lot of crows you happen to be acquainted with, Jews or otherwise, would give you their eye teeth to eat this corn. Eye teeth is a kind of tooth, and obviously birds don't have teeth. Schwartz did not answer. What can you say to a Gruber Jung? Gruber Jung means a rough young person, a ruffian. So he's an uneducated young person who has no respect. And there's nothing to say to such a person from Schwartz's point of view. Not for my digestion, he later explained to Edie. Cramps, herring is better even if it makes you thirsty. At least rainwater doesn't cost anything. He laughed sadly in breathy cause. And herring, thanks to Edie, who knew where to shop, was what Schwartz got, with an occasional piece of potato pancake and other traditional Jewish food, and even a bit of soup meat when Cohen wasn't looking. When school began in September, before Cohen could once again suggest giving the bird the boot, Edie prevailed on him to wait a little while until Mori adjusted. To deprive him of him right now might hurt his schoolwork, and you know what trouble we had last year. So, okay, but sooner or later the bird goes. That I promise you. Schwartz though nobody had asked him, took on full responsibility for Mori's performance in school. In return for favors granted, when he was let in for an hour or two at night, he spent most of his time overseeing the boys' lessons. He sat on top of the dresser near Mori's desk as he laboriously wrote out his homework. Mori was a restless type, and Schwartz gently kept him to his studies. He also listened to him practice his screechy violin, taking a few minutes off now and then to rest his ears in the bathroom. And they afterward played dominoes. The boy was an indifferent checker player, so not very good, and it was impossible to teach him chess. Chess is considered more intellectual, more strategic, and Mori just does not get it. When he was sick, Schwartz read him comic books, though he personally disliked them. But Mori's work improved in school, and even his violin teacher admitted his playing was better. Edie gave Schwartz credit for these improvements, though the bird pooh-poohed them. Yet he was proud there was nothing lower than C minuses on Mori's report card, and on Edie's insistence celebrated with a little schnapps. If he keeps up like this, Cohen said, I'll get him in an Ivy League college, so best universities in America for sure. Oh, I hope so, sighed Edie. But Schwartz shook his head. He's a good boy. You don't have to worry. He won't be a shicker, he won't be a drunk, or a wife beater. God forbid. But a scholar he'll never be, if you know what I mean, although maybe a good mechanic. It's no disgrace in these times. If I were you, Cohen said, angered, I'd keep my big snoot out of other people's private business. So keep your nose out of my business, your big nose. Again, an association that anti Semites have for how Jewish people look. If you look at any anti Semitic caricatures of Jews, you'll see big noses. Harry, please, said Edie. My goddamn patience is wearing out. That cross-eyed butts into everything. Though he wasn't exactly a welcome guest in the house, Schwartz gained a few ounces, although he did not improve in appearance. He looked bedraggled as ever, his feathers unkempt, as though he had just flown out of a snowstorm. He spent, he admitted, little time taking care of himself, too much to think about. Also, outside plumbing, he told Edie. Still, there was more glow to his eyes, so that though Cohen went on calling him cross eyes, he said it less emphatically. Liking his situation, Schwartz tried tactfully to stay out of Cohen's way. But one night when Edie was at the movies and Mori was taking a hot shower, the frozen food salesman began a quarrel with the bird. For Christ's sake, notice a lot of Jewish Americans say for Christ's sake just as a figure of speech, but of course Christ is part of the Christian belief system, not the Jewish one. For Christ's sake, why don't you wash yourself sometimes? Why must you always stink like a dead fish? Mr. Cohen, if you pardon me, if somebody eats garlic, it will smell from garlic. I eat herring 3 times a day. Feed me flowers, and I will smell like flowers. Like what you eat is how you smell. Who's obliged to feed you anything at all? You're lucky to get herring. Excuse me, I'm not complaining, said the bird. You're complaining. You said I smell bad. What's more, said Cohen, even from out in the balcony I can hear you snoring away like a pig. It keeps me awake at night. Snoring? Said Schwartz. Isn't a crime, thanks God. All in all, you are a goddamn pest and a freeloader. Next thing you want to sleep in bed next to my wife. Mr. Cohen, said Schwartz, on this rest assured, a bird is a bird, so I'm not attracted to your wife, don't worry. So you say, But how do I know you're a bird and not some kind of goddamn devil? If I was a devil, you would know already. I don't mean because your son's good marks. Shut up, you bastard bird, shouted Cohen. Gruberjung, called Schwartz, rising to the tips of his talons, his long wings outstretched. Cohen was about to lunge for the bird's scrawny neck to choke him, but Mori came out of the bathroom, and for the rest of the evening until Schwartz's bedtime on the balcony there was pretended peace. But the quarrel had deeply disturbed Schwartz, and he slept badly. His snoring woke him, and awake he was fearful of what would become of him. Wanting to stay out of Cohen's way, he kept to the birdhouse as much as possible. Cramped by it, he paced back and forth on the balcony ledge, or sat on the birdhouse roof, staring into space. In the evening, while overseeing Mori's lessons, he often fell asleep. Awakening, he nervously hopped around, exploring the four corners of the room. He spent much time in Mori's closet and carefully examined his bureau drawers when they were left open. And once, when he found a large paper bag on the floor, Schwartz poked his way into it to investigate what possibilities were. The boy was amused to see the bird in the paper bag. He wants to build a nest, he said to his mother. Edie, sensing Schwartz's unhappiness, spoke to him quietly. Maybe if you did some of the things my husband wants you would get along better with him. Give me a for instance, Schwartz said. Like take a bath, for instance. I'm too old for baths, said the bird. My feathers fall out without baths. He says you have a bad smell. Everybody smells. Some people smell because of their thoughts or because who they are. My bad smell comes from the food I eat. What does his come from? I better not ask him or it might make him mad, said Edie. In late November, Schwartz froze on the balcony in the fog and cold, and especially on rainy days, he woke with a stiff joint and could barely move his wings. Already he felt twinges of rheumatism. He would have liked to spend more time in the warm house, particularly when Mori was in school and Cohen at work. But though Edie was good-hearted and might have sneaked him in the morning just to thaw out, he was afraid to ask her. In the meantime, Cohen, who had been reading articles about the migration of birds, came out on the balcony one night after work when Edie was in the kitchen preparing pot roast and peeking into the birdhouse. Warned Schwartz to be on his way soon if he knew what was good for him. Time to hit the flyways. Mr. Cohen, why do you hate me so much? Asked the bird, really one of the big questions of the story. Why does Cohen hate him so much? What did I do to you? Because you're an A number one troublemaker, that's why. What's more, whoever heard of a Jewbird? Now scat or it's open war. But Schwartz stubbornly refused to depart, so Cohen embarked on a campaign of harassing him, meanwhile hiding from Edie and Mori. Mori hated violence, and Cohen didn't want to leave a bad impression. He thought maybe if he played dirty tricks on the bird, he would fly off without being physically kicked out. The vacation was over. Let him make his easy living off the fat of somebody else's land. Cohen worried about the effect of the bird's departure on Mori's schooling, but decided to take the chance. First, because the boy now seemed to have the knack of studying. Give the blackbird bastard credit. And second, because Schwartz was driving him bats by being there always, even in his dreams. The frozen food salesman began his campaign against the bird by mixing watery cat food with the herring slices in Schwartz's dish. He also blew up and popped numerous paper bags outside the birdhouse as the bird slept. And when he had got Schwartz good and nervous, though not enough to leave, he brought a full-grown cat into the house, supposedly a gift for little Mori, who had always wanted a pussy. The cat never stopped springing up at Schwartz whenever he saw him, one day managing to claw out several of his tail feathers. And even at lesson time, when the cat was usually excluded from Maury's room, although somehow or other he quickly found his way in at the end of the lesson, Schwartz was desperately fearful of his life and flew from pinnacle to pinnacle, light fixture to closed tree to doorstop in order to elude the beast's wet jaws. Once, when the bird complained to Edie how hazardous his existence was, she said, "Be patient, Mr. Schwartz. What the cat gets to know you better, he won't try to catch you anymore." "When he stops trying, we will both be in paradise," Schwartz answered. "Do me a favor and get rid of him. He makes my whole life worry. I'm losing feathers like a tree loses leaves. I'm awfully sorry, but Maury likes the pussy and helps with it." What could Schwartz do? He worried but came to no decision, being afraid to leave. So he ate the herring garnished with cat food, tried hard not to hear the paper bags bursting like firecrackers outside the birdhouse at night, and lived terror-stricken closer to the ceiling than the floor, as the cat, his tail flicking, endlessly watched him. Weeks went by. Then, on the day after Cohen's mother had died in her flat in the Bronx, remember she was dying from the beginning of the story, when Maury came home with a zero on his arithmetic test, Cohen, enraged, waited until Edie had taken the boy to his violin lesson, then openly attacked the bird. He chased him with a broom on the balcony, and Schwartz frantically flew back and forth, finally escaping into his birdhouse. Cohen triumphantly reached in and grabbed both skinny legs, dragged the bird out, cawing loudly, his wing widely beating. He whirled the bird around and around his head, but Schwartz, as he moved in circles, managed to swoop down and catch Cohen's nose in his beak and hang on for dear life. Cohen cried out in great pain, punched the bird with his fist, and tugging at his legs with all his might, pulled his nose free. Again he swung the yoking Schwartz around until the bird grew dizzy, then with a furious heave flung him into the night. Schwartz sank like stone into the street. Cohen then tossed the birdhouse and feeder after him, listening at the ledge until they crashed on the sidewalk below. For a full hour, broom in hand, his heart palpitating and nose throbbing with pain, Cohen waited for Schwartz to return, but the broken-hearted bird didn't. "That's the end of that dirty bastard," the salesman thought and went in. Edie and Maury had come home. "Look," said Cohen, pointing to his bloody nose swollen 3 times its normal size. "What that son of a bitchy bird did. It's a permanent scar." "Where is he now?" Edie asked, frightened. "I threw him up and he flew away. Good riddance." Nobody said no, though Edie tapped a kerchief to her eyes and Maury rapidly tried the 9 times table and found he knew approximately half. In the spring, when the winter's snow had melted, the boy, moved by a memory, wandered in the neighborhood, looking for Schwartz. He found a dead black bird in a small lot near the river, his two wings broken, neck twisted, and both bird eyes plucked clean. Who did it to you, Mr. Schwartz? Mori wept. Anti-Semites, like Schwartz used to say it, Edie said later. I hope you found this reading enjoyable and that my explanation added to your enjoyment. Thank you for listening.